There's a common reaction people have when they first visit Chicago. When they see the expansive blue waters of a lake that could easily be mistaken for an ocean. When they view the steel and glass skyscrapers rising out of what was once flat prairie. Or when they encounter one of the city's many neighborhood festivals. It's that reaction of, I had no idea it was so big, so beautiful, so clean, or just so much fun. Chicago, you see, has this habit of surprising people, ever since it rose from the ashes of the Great Chicago Fire. It surprised the world just 19 years later when it hosted the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition and entertained over 30 million visitors. It surprised them when it reversed the flow of a river. When people said buildings could only go so high, Chicago surprised them, erecting the world's first skyscraper. When people said grand museums were the province of the East Coast or Europe, Chicago surprised them. And when people said fine dining belonged to the culinary capitals of the world, well, surprise, Chicago became the most exciting American city for dining. Chicago's theaters have been surprising and exciting people ever since they opened their doors. Along Michigan Avenue, shoppers are always surprised at how much stamina it takes to actually try to visit all the stores on the Magnificent Mile. Of course, the driving force behind what makes Chicago so surprising are the people who populate its diverse neighborhoods. People literally from every corner of the world who call Chicago home. It's their energy and their passion for life itself that drives Chicago forward. And no place is their passion more evident than in their love of sport. On any given day in Chicago, you will see our backyards, our schoolyards, and our parks filled with people running, biking, and kicking or throwing balls of all sizes. And when they're not playing, they're filling seats and stands throughout the city, cheering at the many athletic events that take place here. And what does Chicago do when people start to think they've got it figured out? It adds something new and different to the mix, like the urban poetry that is Millennium Park. Now imagine a city that offers everything Chicago does, hosting the athletes of the 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games. A games focused on the athlete, in the center of the city, in the heart of a nation, becoming the focal point of a global celebration. And imagine just how many languages people will use to express their surprise.
Thank you. We're really glad to be here today to be able to talk with you about the 2016 bid and the important role that new media is playing in the bid. Living in Chicago, I sometimes take for granted all the great things the city has to offer. So whether it's our lakefront, our parks, cultural institutions, theater, world-class dining, shopping, entertainment, nightlife, and of course our vibrant creative community. As our bid team has learned as we've traveled throughout the world in talking about the Chicago 2016 opportunity, we're finding out that people really don't know how special Chicago is. So that's one of the reasons that we did the video. The video was something that we showed in Beijing to the International Olympic Committee members and helped them understand what Chicago is all about. Now, many of you may not know this, but most of the IOC members, the International Olympic Committee members, will never visit Chicago. So instead, what we have to be able to do is tell the story of the bid so that they can experience what I just talked about, the lakes, the culture, etc. And speaking of Beijing, how many of you watched the Beijing Olympics? I can't really see, but I'm hoping that's almost everybody, because if you didn't, you were one of the few people. It was the most watched event in TV history. So let me say that again, most watched event in TV history. Now, why is that important? Because what we're seeing is more and more that there's a move away from watching TV and going on the web. So NBC was very nervous that with just 3,600 hours of TV that they were going to be, or 3,600 hours of content that they were going to be providing, that there may not be that many people that want to watch it on TV. And instead what they found out is they actually grew the pie by including online. And specifically with online usage, it was people that either were looking for sports they couldn't find on TV, or they went back to actually look at replays of events they'd already seen. So it proved to be complementary. So for NBC and for us, that's a big breakthrough. Anybody want to guess what the biggest event was that was watched online, where the biggest spike was? Not close. It was Phelps. Phelps' 8th Olympic gold medal. So I was fortunate enough to be in Beijing for the games, and one of the things that struck me was that when the eyes of the world were on China and Beijing, the Chinese people really rose up and were the best they could be. It really made you feel like you were at home when you were in China. They made you feel like you were part of their community. And as I attended sporting events in the magnificent venues that China built, I thought about our games plan in the historic parklands and beautiful lakefront that will provide a dramatic backdrop for the athletes and spectators and create a spectacular setting for sport. So we are the only bid that will have its games in the center of the city, literally in the heart of the city. While you may hear other bids talk about that, given the geographic proximity of where we are downtown, we're the only one. And that's a great claim for us. I also encountered the incredible kindness and generosity of the Chinese volunteers, and I thought of Chicago, some of the warmest, most passionate people in the world, and how we would make the world feel at home in our city. I mean, after all, Chicago is the city of immigrants. We've stood as a beacon for people from other parts of the world who are looking for opportunity and a better life. I bet you didn't know there's 26 different ethnicities that have populations of over 25,000 each. Add on to that a total of 100 different nationalities that are represented here in Chicago. Now, if any of you were at the 2007 World Boxing Championships that we hosted, it was great to actually see the different nationalities come out and be the hometown cheering sections for the different boxers that had come from all around the world. Now, there's a lot of talk about having to outdo Beijing as the next games. And fortunately, London is 2012, and they would have that task. But the way that we look at it is,
Go London.
it's not about outdoing. It's about doing what is special for your city. And in our case, we'll put it on the Chicago way and the American way. So, and I think you'd all agree that we'd be a great host city. So we're in a campaign. This is not a business as much as it is a campaign. And the campaign is involving 4 cities, including ourselves. So it's Tokyo, Rio de Janeiro, and Madrid are all part of our competitive set. And as I said, it's a campaign just like our presidential campaign where we're looking to be elected. That election will end in almost just a little bit over a year on October 2nd, 2009 in Copenhagen. Along the way, there are different events that we will be working on that include putting in a bid book, which is essentially a 600-page Bible of what we promised the International Olympic Committee we will deliver on for the Games. There will be an evaluation committee of the International Olympic Committee that comes and looks at the city to both grill us on what we've talked about in the bid book, but also to see, is Chicago Olympic ready? There'll be another presentation in Lausanne in June in which we have to go through our plan one more time, and then there's a final presentation in October. So we have a year, and we've still got a lot of ground to cover, a lot. But we're confident that we can do it. And the way that we're going to do it, we're going to do it together. So together is the key word for us because, to win a bid, it's not the committee's to win. It's really yours to win. This is really a people's bid that we need to have you involved in. And, one of the ways that we looked at new media was a great way of helping get as many Chicagoans involved in the bid as we possibly can. So right now we have 84% support of the population to bring the Games to Chicago. And that's amazing. And we want to maintain that support, and frankly, we want to grow it. And one of the ways that we want to do that is using new media platforms. And the objectives that we set forth were very aggressive in how we wanted to look at the new media framework of our bid. And that was, we wanted to be the best partner the IOC could have from a new media perspective. So we go back to my chart where it showed the NBC broadcast makeup. New media is going to become more and more important to the IOC. And we want to show them that Chicago and America, from an innovation standpoint, can help them realize the best opportunity there is out there. At the same time, we also wanted to make sure that we could expose the greater population to the Olympic movement. And I could talk about the Olympic movement for quite a while, in that it's not just sport, it's a movement about values that include peace, hope, and harmony. If you haven't been to our website, I'd suggest you go to the website to find out more about the movement, because there's a whole section about it. Two areas that we're really excited about, and I'm going to introduce Jim and Bill to talk more about it, is social networking, and also talking about what we can do to get user-generated content to help tell our story. Because frankly, it's not us that want to tell the story. We want everybody in Chicago to tell our story. You guys want to come up?
Sure. Thanks.
Yep.
So,
we both have remote controls.
so we'll be fighting here.
And I don't, so I won't be.
There's actually enough remote controls to give everyone in the audience one too, but that'd be an interesting experiment.
That'd be kind of fun.
So you saw Beijing, and in Beijing what's kind of interesting when you watch that when you're from Chicago is the realization that Beijing and Chicago are two essentially very different cities. Beijing is a place where 1 million people can get together in lockstep and do something absolutely amazing. And Chicago is a place where 10 million people get together and do entirely different things. And that's kind of the unique spirit of Chicago. You know, Chicago is a place where people are willing to say and do what they want to say and do. They're willing to be themselves. Chicago is the unmoderated message board of America, you know? And so the idea was, how can we find a way to tap all of that? How can we find a way to make sure that this bid is unique in the history of Olympic bids and also unique in the history of Chicago? Is finding a way to reach out to every individual, to find every person on the street who has a various different reason for believing why that the Olympics belong here, and put those together into a story that makes a lot of sense. And so our goal here was to take this bizarre city composed of every single kind of person in the world. Children from every country in the world live here, and they call this place home.
I think there's 202 nationalities that can be represented in Chicago, so it's a big challenge.
It's remarkable. You can basically speak any language you want in this city. How to find a way to take all of those voices and turn it into a unified voice, a voice that says the same thing, which is that we want the Olympic bid here. How to take the individual uniqueness of the children of the city, the fact that we're talking about Generation Y, which is potentially the single most multiculturally diverse generation out there, and again, the most socially connected, and again, create a voice out of that says, we want the bid here. And what's interesting about Chicago, too, is that people who live here, the people who've come here from other places, they understand Chicago, and they're the most wonderful advocates because they realize that what we know about this city is different than what other people know about this city. We see the diversity, we see the experience, we see the fact that it changes every single day. Right now, we're in the understanding that if we win this bid, we could potentially get another star for the flag. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room know what the 4 stars of the Chicago flag stand for. And we thought it's important for us not just to fight for this, but also to make sure that everyone in Chicago has a chance to be part of this history of getting a new star for the Chicago flag and getting Chicago 2016. There's no single way to actually get out there and everyone say at one time, we want the bid because of this, we want the bid because of this. We know social media is the only real way that we can actually do this. So we found a way to create a framework, a platform, to make sure that everyone in the city had a chance to be part of this kind of momentous bid. So to keep the Olympic vocabulary going, we decided to turn on the lights and let the city speak for itself. You know, make sure that we're able to activate every individual person in the city. And we're not telling anyone in this room something they don't know, because they all know exactly what it means to turn on all the lights, to make sure that the people around you are activated and they have a chance to participate.
So, some of the things we did was we wanted really to allow people to come to us however their passions see it fit. So if you're into volunteerism, we want you to volunteer. If you can help us get donations, that's a great thing too. If you're interested in sports, we have the ability to connect you with other sport lovers. Bloggers, we've got a huge blogger outreach program that's kind of kicking off. Educators, we're actually working with a lot of teachers to get it to the students in the Chicago public schools, which is really key.
Artists and musicians. Chicago has some of the most vibrant communities on the planet for the arts. We want to find ways to make sure that leaders in those communities have a chance to lead this too.
So, one of our first efforts that just came out the door is the Why Chicago contest. Everybody in this audience knows user-generated content is great, but it's also difficult to get. We're trying to get Chicagoans to really tell us what makes Chicago great. Not just us, but tell the world. So this is something where, we have a contest going on where users can upload their own videos telling people why Chicago should get the bid. And it just kicked off, and it's moving forward quite well. We're also working very, we're really believe that we need to engage with people where they nest. Nest by nest, I mean, everybody has their favorite social network. Some people are on Facebook, some people are on MySpace, Bebo, whatever. We really need to understand that we need to be everywhere. So we're looking at, this platform we're building for social networking really to be agnostic.
It's important to us that we're not trying to create new behaviors for people, but use existing behaviors to let them do the kind of things that let them kind of connect to the bit.
So, we're, like I said, we're being where conversations are. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're everywhere. The other thing we're really trying to do is ignite the passions of youth. So we're really trying to find using social network for that. But, the real goal is we're trying to, create this digital legacy for the bid, but also, obviously win the bid. But we're really trying to, show the world that this is a great place for sport, creativity, and so forth. And
the story is kind of simple. For everyone in the city, we want to find a way for them to get connected, a way to get involved. And up here, there's 5 ways for every person in the city who's got 5 minutes to go and do something to get involved in the bid. But that's a little different than why we might be here talking to the people in this room. Because the people in this room are different. 30 years ago, we would have been handing out business cards, asking everyone to connect with each other and try and find a way to lend your voice and your talents to this, because the people in this room are the leaders that we're actually looking to engage and activate. But we actually don't need business cards this time. We don't need to do that. It's a whole different world. All we need to do is drop a problem in this room full of problem solvers, full of solvers, and actually talk to people. The problem to solve is engaging youth. Right now, youth have been disengaged from the Olympic movement for a while. We need to find a way to make sure that young people, the most connected group of people, are connected to this bid and connected to the Olympic movement in general.
That's right. And so to us, it's really, you here in the audience are the bid, as I said earlier. The other part of it is that we need you to go out and share and support the bid, because you're very well versed, obviously, in social networking and in word of mouth. Right now, what we need to do is not only spread the word throughout Chicago, we have to nationalize the bid. So it's not only our bid, but it's going to be the people's bid from Chicago all the way around the country. And the International Olympic Committee actually comes here and does research. And they will come probably sometime in the beginning of next year to look at what the level of support is. It will be a key dimension as to what that support is versus our competition.
We've already begun kind of connecting some of the most amazing talent in the city. Right now, even as we speak, Foundation Media is shooting some wonderful work for us over at Resolution Studios. There's a ton of stuff that's actually going on right now every single day where the best and brightest in the city are getting together to do amazing stuff in support of this.
It's just the beginning. I mean, that's, like Mark said, we have a year. So we're going to make that year as powerful as we can.
So rather than the hook coming out to grab us, we want you to be part of it. Go to the website, go to the Facebook page, give us user-generated content, but this is something you all need to be proud of and be involved in. This is our generation's legacy, not unlike the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. Thanks.